So not too long ago, a couple of friends and I got together to watch the hit film Space Jam 2. And it has completely changed the way that I see cinema. It has made me realize just how awful and bare bones modern cinema can be. Never before had I seen a movie that was essentially nothing but an advertisement. A movie so creatively bankrupt that it blew my mind. I was amazed at how awful it was. I thought for a bit as to why I felt this way, and I finally realized. This film substitutes anything meaningful with nostalgia. It doesn't tell an interesting or engaging story because it's too busy showing off all the IPs that Warner Media owns. You wanted a good story? No, we don't have time for that, but we do have the Iron Giant, baby. You remember the Iron Giant? Good acting? No, we don't. The Mystery Machine is here. You like Scooby-Doo, don't you? Maybe an important message? Well, I guess... Oh, look at that. It's It. You remember It? You remember Pennywise? So I got to thinking, as I often do, about how nostalgia has been used in regards to film. Is it possible to make a movie that uses nostalgia in a meaningful way, to actually tell a story? Or will it forever be used as a marketing tool that does nothing but rehash things we already love? Let's start by defining nostalgia. Cambridge defines nostalgia as a feeling of pleasure and also slight sadness when you think about things that happened in the past. Essentially, nostalgia is that funky feeling you get when you think about something positive from your childhood. Space Jam 2 exploits this feeling by constantly reminding you of the past, and it becomes so wrapped up in its own references it forgets to be its own film. It turns into Ready Player One for literally no reason, and as average as Ready Player One was, at least it actually had something to say. The use of 80s pop culture in that film is important to the world and the characters, and it was actually commenting on nostalgia. But in Space Jam 2, these other properties from Warner Media show up purely for no reason. What's the significance of this movie taking place in a serververse? How does it relate to the characters? What is it trying to say about the world? Nothing. It says literally nothing. It's just an excuse for Warner Media to cram everything they own down our throats. Not because it enhances the story or anything, but because we understand the references. Parents taking their kids to see this film will watch it and think, oh wow, look, it's a Matrix reference. I've seen that movie and I like it. This means that I like this movie now. Oh wow, Austin Powers, that's funny. Yeah, baby. Oh look, it's Mini-Me. I know me. This movie's great. Not only does this movie have nothing to say, but the nostalgia actually ends up taking away from the film most of the time. For example, during the climactic basketball game of the film, all of the Warner Bros. Characters are gathered around the court for essentially no reason. So, you have this constant massive mess of characters in the background. So instead of actually watching the game, people get distracted by the crowd because they see a character they recognize. It's literally trying to distract you from how bad the film you're watching is by reminding you of good films. And that to me is the main problem with this film, how it's exploiting nostalgia and replaces an actual plot and character and jokes with references. It's just, this whole movie is a massive circle jerk of Warner Brothers properties. So that begs the question, can you use nostalgia in a way that actually enhances the story and makes sense within the universe? I think you absolutely can. And I think one movie in particular does it perfectly. Now, Mid-90s is a film I absolutely love. I think it's one of the best coming-of-age movies I've ever seen, and it captures the time period and what it's going for almost flawlessly. What I mainly want to talk about is that this film constantly references 90s nostalgia. From everything to the soundtrack, the outfits, the set design, the dialogue, that 4:3 aspect ratio, all of it is taking advantage of nostalgia. So what's the difference between this movie and Space Jam 2? Well, I'll tell you. Space Jam 2 exploits nostalgia, whereas Mid-90s uses it as a storytelling tool. Let me explain. Mid-90s is a film that wants you to connect to its main character as much as possible. And while I certainly didn't grow up in the 90s, watching this film, it's hard not to feel nostalgic about it. There's a term called anemoia, which I think sums this up pretty perfectly. Anemoia means nostalgia for a time you've never known. And to me, that's exactly what this movie does. It's like the director of this film, Jonah Hill, is trying to share his nostalgia with the audience, but it never takes you out of the film. You aren't watching, let's say, this scene and thinking, oh wow, look, it's a PlayStation 1. I like that console. That means this movie's good. The scene isn't about that. It's about the dialogue between these two characters and it feels real. The nostalgia adds another dimension to it. It creates a connection to the characters even if you don't realize it. My point is that it doesn't detract from the film, and it serves a purpose. It's telling a story and connecting you to the characters without even realizing it. Meanwhile, in the hit film Space Jam 2, there is a scene dedicated to literally just referencing the movie Mad Max Fury Road. Why? Well, because Warner Bros. Owns Mad Max. That is literally the only reason. It isn't trying to help you connect to the characters. It isn't trying to make you feel nostalgic about the film you're actually watching. It's simply just a reference. What is the point of the Mad Max scene in Space Jam 2? And I don't just mean basic plot. I mean, what does this scene say about the film? How does it help connect the audience to the film? What does it say about the characters? What purpose does it serve in the greater narrative? Nothing. It's just Looney Tunes characters superimposed into a Mad Max scene. That's it. It's the same with the Matrix scene, and it's the same with the Austin Powers scene. They only exist because you recognize the movies that they're from. They don't do anything new with it. They don't comment on these movies. They're just referencing them. So you may be wondering, why am I even talking about this? What is so important about this to me? Well, I think nostalgia is an extremely useful and universal tool to help tell a story. Think of movies like The Goonies or Stand By Me. These movies aren't just good because they were made back in the day. They're good because at the front they use nostalgia as a storytelling tool. For instance, all of these movies capitalize on one of the most powerful nostalgic concepts you can create: kids going on an adventure. Why do you think Stranger Things and It are so popular? Because they capitalize on that feeling of being a kid again and do something new with it. A movie like Space Jam 2 does nothing but reinforce a negative stereotype about nostalgia, which is that it is nothing more than an easy way to make money. Movies like the Ghostbusters reboot and the new Star Wars movies have done this as well. But I personally believe that it can be so much more than that. It can be an actual tool in the pocket of a filmmaker, a way to connect your audience to the world, to the character, to their struggles. It can feel so much more personal. And that's why I think it's so important, and why Space Jam 2 annoyed me so much. Thanks for watching.